everyone! Welcome to the BPD Brunch, where we get together with our favorite brunchy beverages to catch up, play games, and talk about all things BPD. I'm your host, Xannie, and today I'm here with Jack, Jay, Georgette, and Katja. Where in the world is everyone coming from, and what is your brunchy beverage for the day?
I am Jack. I'm coming from Atlanta, Georgia, United States. And I have a very controversial drink in other countries of the world. I have a nice cup of ice water.
Jay, and I'm coming from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and I'm also drinking water because I'm boring.
Hey, hydration's important.
I'm Georgette. I'm coming from New Jersey in the United States, and I have immune tea and water because I have a little bit of a cold.
I'm Katja. I'm coming from the United Kingdom, West Midlands, and I have coffee in a very artistic cup, getting with the arty vibe.
Nice.
Yeah! I am coming from New Mexico in the United States. I have coffee in my X Scrabble letter mug.
Ooh.
Today we are going to be looking at art pieces from the BPD Art Show put on by Emotions Matter. If this or other BPD related topics interest you, please make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications so you do not miss anything. Now, in case you do not know, Emotions Matter is a nonprofit organization that advocates for, educates, and supports people impacted by borderline personality disorder. In October, they debuted their 4th BPD art show called Riding the Waves, Living with Borderline Personality Disorder. And today, we are going to be looking at 6 of the pieces in the show. There are 39 in total, so if you'd like to check out the rest, definitely head to the links in the description down below. Now, if you couldn't tell already, this is a highly visual episode, so if you happen to be listening to this on one of our audio-only platforms, I highly recommend switching over to Spotify or YouTube so you can get the full effect. Each of the pieces is accompanied by an artist statement, so we'll go through the pieces, read out their artist statements, and then talk about what it brings up for us, what we see in the pieces, and how that relates to our BPD experience. So to start us off, our first piece is Calm After the Storm. Jay, could you read the artist statement for that one?
This piece, Calm After the Storm, illustrates what splitting has been like for me. Sudden, all-consuming, and unpredictable, like white-hot lightning. With support from my BPD community, the Emotions Matter LGBTQIAP+ group, the DBT program I'm a part of, and my very patient and supportive partner, I am able to slowly but surely start to transform my relationship to splitting, from a place of shame to learning how to vulnerably move through my fears with tools and supportive people by my side. The rainbow depicts the hope I have in being able to act like a prism in transforming the rage and racing anxieties into something heartfelt and beautiful in the ways I show up and behave towards others.
Jay, what drew you to this one?
I think what drew me to this actually was the rainbow, in part because I think that something that we rarely see in representations of BPD is anything that resembles lightness or positivity. And something else that drew me to it is the contrast of like the background against maybe that air of positivity and also the facial expression, because I think for me the facial expression it's sort of like a little bit of a half smile to me, and then the background is kind of a stark contrast to that. It's a bit more chaotic, and I think that that's something that a lot of people don't kind of realize about BPD is there's like such a storm going on inside your head sometimes. And your expression and how you're bringing yourself to a room doesn't necessarily convey that. And I relate very much to those kinds of experiences because I guess I relate more to quote unquote quiet BPD, where I'm like destroying myself inside but outside I'm not necessarily explosive or really, really, really upset and visually visceral in my reactions to things. But inside, all of that is still happening. And the positive piece, the rainbow, this is also something that I really identify with, because I identify a lot with what BPD has made possible for me, my level of like depth of understanding for other people, empathy. I was drawn in by that.
I think what's really interesting about the rainbow is that it's not like shown in the traditional way that you see a rainbow, like with the lines. It's kind of like these fractured pieces. I don't know if this was the intention, but for me, it brings up that sort of like fractured aspect of identity in BPD, and kind of like trying to take these individual pieces and make something cohesive, but it's not there yet. It's like working on, it's like the process of becoming a cohesive thing.
Yeah, I also related to that quite a lot, because that's another thing that a lot of people don't realize is like the level of effort that we're often going through behind closed doors, and that we're putting into this process of trying to, like, how do I want to frame this? Like, not because what initially came to my mind was like be better, but like that frames us as like we're the problem. In splitting, for example, when you're viewing somebody as all bad, and you have awareness of that, or in my experience, when I have awareness of that process of trying to bring equilibrium and balance is really a very fractured, difficult process. Every time I try to think something positive, the bad is trying to cloud that. And it's a constant sort of chaotic mix of the two. So I also got that from the fracturing.
I really like how they painted on the storm side, like the white lightning side, with all of the black squiggly marks on that side, because I felt like it really spoke to me and how I feel like my brain is and my thoughts when I'm in like a splitted place where I have all this negative stuff, but it's so jumbled up. And I just like how the artist visually depicted that with the kind of squiggly, almost like angry squiggles with the black on that stormy side. I thought that was a really good depiction of how mixed up you can feel inside when you're in that place.
Yeah, I like the lightning side too, because it doesn't just look like lightning to me. It also looks like it's broken into pieces. It looks like lightning, that flash of anger, just when you split in, sudden, random, you there, but afterwards you left to pick up the pieces of whatever you just did. That relationship you just broke in, the friends you hurt, the feelings you left to pick up the pieces, and kind of looks like it's broken to me as well. And I think that's a dope aspect that I interpreted out of it as well.
Yeah, I think looking at that image there, the one thing that popped into my mind, and it is totally random, is the section with the purple and the black and the lightning. It actually really reminds me of the UK book cover for A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness, and that's one of my favourite books ever. It's like one of the only books that's ever really stirred me to any kind of emotion, and I won't go into what the book's about here because that's not really relevant, but the fact that it reminded me so much of the cover really gave me that emotional connection to the picture. And I think looking at the rainbow, I know that the artist has said it's about putting something heartfelt and beautiful out into the world, but I actually interpreted it as coming the other way, so allowing that into your life and having compassion and love for yourself as well.
That's so beautiful.
I know, everyone needs to go and watch A Monster Calls now, because you're just going to cry so much. And I'm dead inside, so when I saw that picture I was like, oh my god, emotion.
All right, so the next piece is called Afterhours.
I am fascinated with the human condition that we are all part of, more specifically with how each of us experience and see ourselves, each other, and the world on our collective journey. As a child, I was very sensitive and empathetic. I would feel things very deeply, and at times I imagined I knew how things around me felt. My sensitive and creative mind literally felt the weight of humanity. My mind would see all these highs, lows, anxieties, and triumphs overlapping and bleeding into my own personal experiences. At that age, I did not know how to process what I was feeling, but as an adult, I work through what I see on my canvas. I paint because I must. When I look around and see what's happening in the world today, it makes my heart break for humanity, and it propels me to paint. I feel the pain, sorrow, and disconnect of so many souls. I hope that people who view my painting recognize a piece of their own humanity and know they're being seen. Wow. When I saw this painting, it looked like I was seeing myself after just a day where I'm just tired of everything. I'm exhausted. It's that tired that you just can't sleep off. That's why it originally felt when I saw this picture. But now reading what they said, what this picture really means, it just feels so much heavier because I know I felt that as a child as well. When I was in kindergarten, we made these kindergarten books. And one of the pictures the kindergarten teacher had us draw was how we see ourselves. And the picture I drew was, I said, I see myself as somebody who has the whole world in my head. Like Elizabeth said, I saw all the anxieties, all the struggles that my parents, that the people around me were seeing. I felt the harshness of the world from a young age. And that just really resonates seeing this picture and knowing that I was the only person who felt like that at a young age.
Well, I don't know if anybody else sees it, but it looks to me almost like there's the person sitting on the bench, but then there's like a non-specific creature kind of in the air behind the person. I don't know what the artist intended that specifically to represent, but it definitely, I don't know, it hit me in a way. It reminded me of that feeling like you are sharing your body with something waiting over your shoulder for you to make a mistake, and then it's gonna like step in and just sabotage everything. It looks like it's almost got like these arms that are like sticking out. A little bit of this is like my interpretation of the shapes, because some of this is non-specific texture, but that's what my mind sees in the texture.
I have such a different interpretation of that. To me, it actually looks quite angelic, the creature. And it's been painted with much lighter colors that contrast the background. So to me, it was more emblematic of like the light part of you is always trying its best to permeate the dark parts. Whenever I feel bad, whenever I feel low, whenever I feel like I want to be toxic, for example, when I feel hurt, there's always that part of me that's always trying to mediate that's trying to say, yeah, he hurt you, but you don't need to go down there because that's not who you are.
Yeah, now that you say that, I can totally see that. I think it's because the part that I see as arms looked kind of sharp to me. I tend to associate like sharp, pointy with like evil, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, there's yellow above the head, and it is like a lighter color. Maybe it was supposed to be the light.
But this is the beauty of art, right? You see different things. It relates to different parts of you.
Yeah, I really liked this one. I really liked the color. It's almost like a little rainbowy. I saw the creature coming out of the figure. I saw it kind of angelic too, or like almost a little half human, half bird, but also kind of like looking up into the sky, like towards the light. And then I like how on the left-hand side, it looks like to me there's birds there, almost like crows or something, and that part's like a little darker. But again, I like how the artist captured like turmoil in like the messiness of the strokes, and there are different strokes and different colors, and it's all kind of coming together. I think it's a really beautiful picture. I think it's really, I just like the use of the color and the chaos, but it all comes together in such a beautiful way, which I think is very typical with BPD.
For me with this one, I do see the angelic quality of sort of the figure in the background, but to me it almost seemed like it was an actual child. And I think looking at it straight on, it almost looks to me, with the difference in colours and textures, that it's like a portal to another world almost. And I think, to me at least, because it looks like there is a child in the middle of that, it's almost like a gateway to childhood and maybe some message of regression, because I feel almost like for me, I see my younger years as like the absolute ideal. I mean, realistically they weren't, but I look back on them with so much fondness and almost have like a yearning for that time when things were so much simpler, and the painting just really strikes me as, I don't know, I think the word is yearning that I'm looking for. It's like harking back to childhood and almost wanting a departure from how life is now and going back to a childlike state.
So there was something else that I noticed as well, is like the light is sort of like almost bleeding out of the figure that's a little bit blackened, but the rest of the atmosphere is very dark. And I think, to me, what I took from that is that something that people rarely kind of remember outside of the community is that a lot of people with BPD, we've been heavily like traumatized or hurt by our environment, by the people in that environment, the systems that are in that environment. And a lot of that darkness has been thrust on us. And there's a huge amount of light within each person that has BPD that's trying to constantly resist that. And that's something that I got from that as well.
Alrighty, so the next piece is the maturation of Jimmy Lee.
The Maturation of Jimmy Lee is a personal journey of an individual living with BPD. Loosely based on a family member, the artwork explores 3 phases of personality disorder. There are actually 7 phases, but for the sake of presentation, I minimised it down to 3. Part 1. Life is good and reflects an individual that appears to have everything under control. Part 2. Cracks appear and Jimmy starts to unravel. He begins to self-medicate and lash out to those closest to him. Part 3 is exhaustion, rock bottom, and possibly the first phase of a new beginning. With this one, what I really liked is that it's an outsider perspective of BPD. And I think in artwork, especially when it comes to mental illness, that's something that you don't really see too often. So I found that a really interesting angle for them to have taken. Looking at the image, there's certain aspects of it that I recognise. So not really so much the partying and drinking, but definitely those parts or phases that they talk about. Part 3 is sort of the crash, I guess, or burnout, when you are really struggling with unmanaged symptoms. But I really like the optimism of the possibility of a new beginning. That's quite a lot to get in an image, but I really think that they've captured it so well, even with the way that Jimmy is presented. So, I mean, you can quite clearly see from his appearance and his presentation that this is somebody who's really in the thick of it. And I just thought it was such a powerful image to represent what BPD is like for so many people.
It has like a lot of movement in it. I guess maybe it's the way it's painted. It looks like, even though it's like a static image, it looks like it has a lot of movement. And it looks like a fun party, sort of. Except then I notice on the table there's like bullets there, and there's like drug paraphernalia, and like his glasses are cracked, and then there's like a hot lady, but it looks like she's waving like bye. she wants off the train, you know. It looks lonely. But I think because it's painted in this style, that just makes me think of like it looks like it's kind of coming alive with like movement, that you're not stuck there. Like it seems like something's about to happen. And I like how the artist wrote in there that this is like the stage 3, the exhaustion. Like this could be the where you need to be to start over, you know, that rock bottom point. And now you're going to start to have forward movement.
It definitely feels like quite a visceral image of self-destruction to me. I mean, even just looking at Jimmy's face, like it's so vacant, there's nothing there. Like I feel like when I look at this, it's like a punch to the stomach, because although I don't relate directly to those particular circumstances that are depicted in the image, absolutely the feelings, like the face just really gets me.
I feel like this pretty much perfectly captures my age 21 to 22. I was just in such a cycle of self-destruction, I guess. And it's not just like all of the specific references to like gambling or drinking or drugs that resonate with me. It's also this, he has almost like this rigid posture, but you know, Katja, you said that his face looked vacant. To me, it actually looks very pretend stoic almost. Like I see a lot of emotion in the eyes. And maybe this is just me projecting my own personal experience onto this, but what I see is someone who is like, no, I like this life. I'm choosing this. I'm not out of control. I've totally got this. Look at how cool I am. Look at all this stuff I'm doing. It's like, I can't stop moving because if I do, then I'm going to feel, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to keep doing this. And that's sort of the vibe that I get from this.
I feel like this looks like a person who needs help, but the face is, to me, I see stoicism, but also like defiance. Like, yeah, this is me. Like, what do you make of it? Or what do you know what I mean? Almost in a way that like the times when I probably needed love and support the most, I was defiant and pushing it away, I guess because I was afraid of being so open and raw, the way that you would need to be to accept help from people who loved you. So I see that kind of almost the defiant look on his face that is in contrast to kind of what's coming through in the eyes and the rest of the picture, which is like that he needs help.
What I like about this painting is the fact that the closer you look at it, the more you see. Like from afar, like if I say he looks confident, he looks like he has everything in control. But the closer you look at it, you notice his disheveled clothes, the crack in his glasses, like I said, the different drug paraphernalia, the beautiful woman walking away. It just shows that the more you, like you said, it's somebody who knows this person really well. So it shows like no matter how much of a front you put on, people who know you will see through those cracks immediately and know what you were going through without you even telling them. This is a very beautiful painting. It's deep. It's very, I feel it's very simple but very deep at the same time.
So the next one is called Sun.
A Burning Sun Exploded by Pierre Côté is a vivid exploration of the human condition, blending existential anguish with hope. The central figure, surrounded by a radiant core, symbolizes creation and destruction. Neon hues contrast with cooler tones, creating an emotional landscape, while green accents add on an otherworldly quality. The figure, enveloped by elongated forms, challenges viewers to consider societal pressures. Côté's technique, reminiscent of Basquiat and Pollock, uses digital materials, resulting in layered contemplative art. The piece grapples with identity, memory, and the human struggle against entropy, reflecting Côté's experiences with BPD. Inspired by Beach House's song Myth, the piece aligns with themes of self-discovery and the ephemeral nature of life. Côté says, "My recent works reflect my battles with BPD, offering hope and testament to the therapeutic power of the creative process." It shows it. I really like the light. I like that there's that central figure, but there's like almost like a white hot, like burning light. And then I like the chaos of all this stuff like coming out from the figures, almost like their fingers are exploding out. It captures for me the chaos in my mind sometimes, and like how things feel so jumbled up and very vivid. Like it's like the colors here really, they're bright, they're vivid, and they're contrasting, yet like all together. There's a lot of movement and a lot of energy, yet at the same time, like it's sort of a bit of order is coming to it, like with the shapes and things like that. A lot of times I just feel like there's a lot of chaos in my brain, especially when I'm having like a BPD episode. So I like these pictures that depict it because there's like not words for it.
I'm the same way. I have a lot of chaos in my brain. I almost thrive in the chaos. I feel like this is a perfect representation of that chaos. And not only that, but in my head, I'm seeing the figure in the middle surrounded by other people. He's is a central figure that, yes, chaotic, but he's surrounded by people that, that's central to them. And it's just, it's a lot going on. And it's just, I don't know, it's really calming. It's very chaotic, but really calming. Like, I'm looking at myself in the mirror somehow.
It must be layered because now I'm seeing in the very background, like flames, like at the bottom, like flames coming up. Art's funny. The longer you look at things, the more that you kind of are seeing and take from it.
Something that I have taken away from it is the layering, I think, is very indicative of my experience of BPD, where multiple things can be true at once, right? We love that line from DBT, but I feel like this embodies that kind of message for me of like, I can love and hate at the same time. I can be frustrated yet feel shame. I can blame them but also feel like I'm responsible. And when I'm in my own BPD episodes, that happens constantly for me. So that layering really resonated with me, how those things can coexist at exactly the same time. And I even though I experience it, I find that confusing.
It's interesting because I don't know if I would have gotten the creative element without hearing the artist statement. Before I heard the artist statement, what this brought up for me was just the time in my life when I just kind of burned everyone I came into contact with. And I think it's the fire and sort of this like explosive coming out from the person. And whatever the shapes are on the side, if they're representative of other people, there's like a significant amount of space between those people and the central figure. So for me, what this really brought up was just like keeping everyone at arm's length, because my emotions are so big. Like, you'll get burned if you are too close. So I'm just gonna push everybody away. And I think maybe because like one of the symptoms that was the most prevalent for me was the intense anger. I think that also, it looks very angry to me. And because I associate flame with anger. So to me, this is a very like, grr, arg, stay away. I'm gonna explode on you. And I think after hearing the artist's statement, I can see a little bit more of the, creative beauty sort of life aspect.
See, for me, I find this like quite a fun image. And I think that's because immediately when I saw it, I was like, that totally represents what it's like having BPD and STPD for me, because there's lots going on. It's very chaotic. It's quite dysregulated, but also aliens. It's like, this is 100% my experience. So it really represents chaos, I think, to me, but not a destructive kind of chaos. It kind of reminds me of when I was quite impulsive with BPD, and the fire kind of represents that energy that I had when I was doing something that was maybe something that I shouldn't have been doing really, but then I get everybody else involved in it as well and be like, oh yeah, let's go and do something like crazy and impulsive. So I've got a very different interpretation of it, but obviously having read the background context to that now, I can see where the artist is coming from. But just at a first glance, like, to me that was quite, I don't know, like quite a refreshing image, I guess. I think quite often you do see BPD depicted generally as very dark, quite gloomy, and it is, and I'm not taken away from that at all, but I do think like sometimes with BPD there are little positives every now and again, and for me when I saw that, it just reminded me of, that kind of fun but not overly dangerous impulsivity, because those connections to the figures around the central person or figure just reminded me of when I used to try and bring everybody into the fun a little bit more. So yeah, but that's a highly personal interpretation for me.
Something that I can see in it, and the more that I look at it in terms of maybe the creation element, is that all of these things that the figure in the center is branching out to, they almost resemble like plants to me. Like the roots are growing up, there is something growing upwards, And then you have the fire in the background. So despite the fact that that person is being burned, scorched, whatever, they're still giving energy to trying to grow something positive, to try to create something good, which I relate to a lot, like that constant struggle between the two things.
So the next piece is Midnight.
Last year, my Pandora's box of mental health challenges unexpectedly opened, impacting my career as a creative director. While initially derailing, it ultimately steered me towards a newfound passion for expressing myself through fine arts. The pieces I present here are a reflection of this transformative journey. I have come to understand that personality disorders and mental health struggles are unique to each individual, manifesting in various forms and intensities. In my case, I navigate the complexities of a bipolar disorder, anxiety, and depression. I have chosen to take control of my narrative and refuse to let these challenges define me. Instead, I embrace them as sources of strength and inspiration of my artistic endeavors. And that's really what really draws me to this. It seems very chaotic but beautiful. Somebody who uses the chaos and struggles of their life to create something beautiful. It shows that just because something is dark and messed up and your life isn't going the way you want it to, doesn't mean you can create something wonderful out of it. Doesn't mean you can't use that as inspiration to prepare yourself into something better. And that's what I love about it. It looks dark, but also it's very beautiful.
In Rio, I'm researching a Brazilian psychiatrist, and part of the artwork that her clients produced years ago, a lot of them were like mandalas or things that portrayed these kinds of sequencing. And something that they wrote about what that indicated was that the psyche and the self are attempting to reorganize amidst chaos. So that's immediately what I got when I started looking at this, is like the contrasting colors and the sequencing and the symmetry is like an attempt to reorganize, to find structure, to find creativity amidst all of the chaos and the dark moments.
Yeah, it really just looks like order and chaos all in one. Because, you have these repeating patterns, which are very meticulously done, but they cover the whole, like each individual strand of pattern has kind of a wavy, chaotic feel. And then there's all of the different sort of abstract blue and red kind of fog over it. It very much encapsulates like the contrast, I think, between order and chaos and how they exist simultaneously.
It also looks just very delicate. Like if you were to touch it, it will fall apart. Like this, how the psyche and the mind are. They can be very delicate. A simple push can't break somebody sometimes. It just captures that. It just captures the delicacy of trying to put chaos and order back together into your life and into your psyche. And it seems like it's all connected too. The interconnectedness of it.
There are a couple of sections of pattern that also are a little bit reminiscent of like neural networks. Looks like a little bit like dendrites to me.
Oh, see, I was seeing like almost like sea creatures or like octopus. I'm really into like tie-dye and like ice dye, and I feel like the background really looks like that. I really like that. And then there's all the black intricate patterns that like to me, I was seeing a lot of like sea creatures, but I really like I don't know if you would call it a spiral or a whirlpool. And my experience of BPD, especially when I'm in an episode, like a negative episode, the whirlpool effect with the spiral, I almost like a whirlpool, you can't really stop it. It feels unstoppable. And it also it sucks everything around it into it. And I often had that imagery in my head while I was in very negative BPD episodes, that there was just I was in a whirlpool around me that was like pulling all these things in. And I think that I see that in this painting. And then, for me, seeing like the elements of the sea in the patterns. But then also as I look at it, it almost looks like pieces of like placenta, which I think is cool too.
For me, it's a very serene image, like very calming. It definitely has a very delicate quality to it, very intricate. I think that's really what appeals to me about this, is the fact that it's clear that the artist has put so much work into this. It's absolutely painstaking from the amount of detail that's in there. And I think that, to me, kind of represents how I feel about recovery from BPD. Like, it is such a long and difficult process, and you have to really, really work at it. And I think that's the part of the image that's really resonated for me. It's the work aspect.
I got really drawn to like the bleeding out of the purple and blue parts. It's like all of those dark spaces are getting infiltrated by the energy that's being put into working through things on trying to resolve challenges. It's like you're getting there eventually. You're bringing more color into the space, into your life.
The last art piece that we're going to be talking about today is called Marooned.
Marooned is based on a space I stayed in when I was adrift and looking for a place to live. I felt helpless and stuck in an eternity of insecurity, unprotected in this indefinite, infinite dark space. The exit sign taunts me as I am daunted by the dread of being exposed and judged. I mean, there's so much that I like about this picture. I just feel like everything is symbolism, really, and I think that's what appealed to me. You know, you've got the figure on the mattress on the left hand side cowering in fear, you know, somebody who's quite clearly in distress, and then in the doorway you can see that there's an eye peering in, there's the exit sign above the door, like the colours are beautiful but chaotic, and it's just a really striking image. I feel like when I look at that, it does, I guess, bring back memories that are quite sad, because I definitely relate to that feeling of feeling alone but also judged or observed, or, you know, I mean, it's difficult for me because I'm kind of bringing in the aspects of STPD here as well, but I think for BPD, you know, I think most of us could probably relate to feeling like a bit of an outsider and feeling like we're in a situation that we can't get out of, but we fear other people's reactions. And I think on a personal level as well, taking that image at face value, there have been times in my life where, you know, my personality disorder symptoms have affected me so severely that I've not been in work, and I have quite often, you know, slept on a mattress in a room somewhere because I haven't had money and things like that. And for some of us, that has been a physical reality at certain points in our life.
Yeah, I had a really personal reaction to this one too, because it reminded me of when I first was diagnosed and I was kicked out of my home and I was alone. I had a twin mattress. I had to get my own place and it was empty. And I was so sad and so scared and so alone. I also felt the pressure of my ex-spouse judging me and that eye, that like looking in at you, but you're so lonely and in a corner. I feel like I've been in that physical position and been crying that way and in kind of this corner space of just like pain. And then you have this observing eye just outside the door. It's a beautiful picture, but it also feels hard to look at because of bringing up so many personal things for me and like putting myself back when I was in that space that was so dark and lonely and scary and negative.
It just reminds me of those days where, because I deal with a lot of paranoia. This deals with those days where I'm just too paranoid about what people around me are saying or doing. I feel like everything I'm doing is being watched. The most stuff I do is I don't want to leave my safe space, wherever that is, whether it's really inside my mind, on my mattress in my mind, or my physical room, where I don't want to be around anybody because I'm scared of them looking at me and having thoughts about me and possibly saying anything about me.
This reminds me of when I was in crisis, or the crises that led to my BPD diagnosis in Toronto, because my room at my college was also very dark. It was like red brick walls, very dark. And everyone around me was very aware that I was going through something. I had sometimes like friends calling the police on me because they were worried, and the police entering the college, everyone like being aware that things were going on. I felt very isolated and alone, and I would often just like lay on my bed and basically be like that. But it felt like everyone was watching and was aware, but yet nobody would come to me. There was no sense of like connection. I was very isolated, and it felt like everyone was developing opinions without talking to me. It didn't matter what I said. They already had an interpretation. That feels so insurmountable. Like people make their minds up about you, and that's what I got from this.
I'm not sure if anyone else has had this experience, but I feel like there have been so many points in my recovery journey where it felt kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like what I see in this image is almost like that in-between place where you so badly want to have relationships with people, but for whatever reason, at least for me, I really struggled to treat other people well in moments. And this is like that shame moment after you sort of stuck your foot in it. And it's like you don't really want to be alone because being lonely is horrible. But there's the shame of having to go back out and make that repair and know that everybody is watching you from this lens of like, ooh, is she gonna blow up again? I think it's the suffocating in-between space of feeling like there's no decision you can make where the peace is kept and people are okay. As I've had moments like after a fight where I'm maybe not on the bed, I go to the bathtub with a blanket and cry and just feel like I have to sit in this place and just like hide here and have this quiet breakdown to myself, because if I go out there, everybody's going to be looking at me like, oh, look, it's the BPD girl. So final thoughts about the exercise as a whole, pros, cons, challenges, thoughts.
As a society as a whole, across all lands, we really should put more focus into art therapy. It can't help us tell emotions that we can't put words to.
I feel like this episode has put my recovery into perspective a little bit. So looking at a lot of those images, a lot of those pictures, although it did stir up some uncomfortable memories, like on the whole, I do feel quite far removed from who I was at the time I was experiencing the things that were depicted in those pictures. And I think it was quite nice as well to, in some of them, take some positivity from it, like thinking about the less negative sides of BPD as well. So yeah, I was expecting to come away feeling maybe a bit down and a bit depressed, thinking about how art can imitate life at times, but actually on the whole, it's made me feel really good about recovery.
Yeah, Katja, me too. I think it's really interesting to look at these pieces because, as you said, even though it brought up a lot of emotions, for me, most of the memories that it brought up are from when my BPD was at its worst. And for me, that's 15 years ago. It's not that the person I am now doesn't relate to these pieces at all. I definitely still do. I think I'm just able to appreciate the beauty in it a little bit more than I think if the me from 15 years ago had seen these, I would have related to the suffering aspect and really struggled to see the beauty or the other sides to it. And so I think even though it brought up some difficult feelings at times, I'm really grateful for what these art pieces are leaving me with, which is a sense of satisfaction and fulfillment knowing how far I've come.
Yeah, all the thoughts that came to mind when I was looking at these pictures were from 5, 6, 10 years ago. Yeah, I may have some little moments here and there in my recent life, but most of the big major issues that caused those emotions were a long time ago.
I liked looking at the art and feeling common experiences, and that somebody was able to take something from themselves that was so personal and make a piece of art with it, and it resonated because I think we share these common experiences. And it was like seeing some of my emotions and turmoil put onto paper. I come away feeling not isolated and more like part of a community.
I think something that it brought up for me, this whole process, is that even though there are lots of parts of BPD that are really hard and can feel like hell sometimes, right? There are always these bits of light that pull through it all. And something that I really saw in pretty much all of these pieces is that that was constantly coming through, the light aspect. Because guess what? We're not inherently broken. So that's something that I took away from this.
Thank you, Xannie, to hear that.
I loved that there was so much beauty in the chaos.
That's what I love about chaos. Chaos is never inherently bad, never inherently good. It's what you make out of it.
I like that non-judgmental way of looking at chaos because it can have such a negative connotation when you say it, but you're so right.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes there's a lot of good that comes out of chaos. Like life came from chaos,
100%. It's a tool that we need to learn how to use more often.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. We hope you got a nugget of wisdom to take with you on your journey. To see the rest of the show or to buy prints of any of the art, check out the links in the description down below. And we will see you next time.